talks about stratification in other countries. And from the video you saw on Friday, do stratification exist in North Korea? Is North Korea a stratified society? Or everybody is equal? Is there a utopia after the revolution? Everyone is equal? No. And has anybody been to the UK, the Great Britain? Has anybody been to Europe or Great Britain? You've been there. And how is Great Britain? Can you tell us something? I've not been there, besides the airport. Is it similar to the US or different? You've been there?
It's a little similar, but there's a lot of guards.
A lot of guards?
Places. Like, if you go to Buckingham Palace,
Oh, okay.
there's a lot of guards
Mhm.
everywhere, and no one really talks to each other.
Okay. So people are friendlier in the US?
Yeah, people will talk to you in the US. When
Mhm.
you're there, people are more than likely not going to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're just doing their own thing.
Okay. So, have you talked to anybody in Britain? Just casually or?
No, they kind
Okay.
of just look at you.
Okay.
Got
They,
cussed at.
okay. So, do you think the Brits are more formal or less formal than the US? Which one is more rigid, more formal?
They probably are.
Mm-hmm. This is what's stated on your book, maybe page 209, 208. So the stratification, the class structure in Britain is more formal. And I only been to the Heathrow airport for transit when I go home to Malaysia. So I don't know about the UK society. But I have collaborated in publications, in research, with professors at universities in Britain. And I find that, I don't know, the way they sign their email, they sign their Dr. So-and-so. And sometimes among my colleagues at Mississippi, Delta State, or at UNK, sometimes we are more, maybe flexible, we don't care. We are on a first name basis, and I am on a first name basis with you. Who has a part-time job? Okay. So, when you have a part-time job, you have a boss, am I right? So how would you address your boss? By first name or by Mr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so? How would you address your boss for those who say that they have a job? Tell me something, Americans. You call him Mr.? Okay, your formal first name. Bailey?
I would say, like, at the beginning, it's a Mr.
Mhm.
and Mrs. or Doctor, however they are. And then as you get to know them, you become like a longer employee, then you become on a first name basis.
Okay. So it seems that what you all say, besides Joseph, he's unique, are somewhat consistent. Maybe the UK society is more rigid than the US society. Agree? And I had a brief stint at the corporate world, 2 years in Malaysia before I came for grad school again, and 3 years in Maryland in a company at a consulting firm in Baltimore. So in Malaysia, Malaysia was a British colony, and we address our managers by Mr. and Miss. Not only the first few days, until our last day at work. Malaysia was heavily influenced by the British. Maybe the same for Australia, New Zealand, I don't know. And at my consulting, the job at the consulting firm, I was the statistician. The CEO has a PhD in economics from a good school, maybe Chicago or something, I don't remember. So, big guy, brilliant guy. We all call him Jacob, not Dr. Banners. Like how you address your boss, most of you. So, the stratification system in these two countries are somewhat different. So you can read about the stratification system in the former Soviet Union. According to what's stated on page 209, it depends on your rank, your position in the Communist Party, too bad. And people are spying on each other. You can read that on your own. That is how the stratification system in Soviet Union used to work. And now turn to page 211. I don't know what you have now. Colonialism. What page do we have? 215. Colonialism. So I think we can almost say that most countries in the world has been colonized at some point in time, including your country. Am I right? And you can read the definition on your own. Well, colonialism happens when one country goes to another country, maybe to govern the other countries, or maybe they were initially motivated by looking for a market for their products, looking for raw materials for their factories back home, and maybe eventually they colonize that place. And sometimes through colonialism, stratification can happen. And sometimes when the colonial government, they extract the raw materials in that country and they bring it back to their own country, it's going to eventually impoverish that country. Because of that, stratification can happen among countries. And the other way, how colonialism can lead to stratification is sometimes the colonial government, they want to sustain their position in a given country, in a given society. If the country is multiracial, sometimes the colonial government may be nice to one racial group, may be mean to another, may oppress the other group. And one racial group may support the colonial government, the other may go against the colonial government. It happens in Vietnam, in many countries in Southeast Asia. So this is partly why many countries in Southeast Asia remain somewhat divided racially due to the historical context. So we will talk about the world system theory on Friday, and I'm going to say one last thing. And please bring the sign-in sheets if you want credit. So right after 9/11, that time I was in graduate school. My professor, social theory professor, he wrote down the GDP of the Middle Eastern countries and the US on the board. I'm sure you know, there's a big difference among the GDPs of this country. And he attribute that incident to the income, the wealth differences among this country, what happened during 9/11. So I'll see you on Friday and we will pick up from here.